Commander Zixtal had served the Galactic Defense Force for 30 cycles, witnessing battles that had torn apart solar systems and conflicts that had reshaped entire sectors. His four eyes had seen species rise and fall, empires crumble into cosmic dust, and warriors whose names still echoed through the void long after their deaths. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for what he was about to witness on the battlefield of Kepler 442b. The bridge of the GDF surveillance vessel Silent Observer hummed with nervous energy. Banks of holographic displays showed the approaching human fleet, their primitive-looking ships barely registering on the tactical scanners as anything more than metal coffins floating through space. Zixtal's mandibles clicked together in what his species considered nervous laughter. These humans had only been part of the galactic community for less than a standard year, and already they were volunteering for the most dangerous mission the galaxy had ever seen. "Commander," chirped his communications officer, a small, crystalline being whose voice tinkled like breaking glass. "The human fleet is requesting permission to proceed to the combat zone." Zixtal's primary eyes focused on the tactical display, while his secondary pair kept watch on the energy readings. The Devourers had established a beachhead on Kepler 442b 3 days ago, and every attempt to dislodge them had ended in catastrophe. The Korthak Empire had sent their best shock troops, genetically enhanced warriors who could survive in vacuum for hours and whose bone-crushing strength was legendary throughout 7 sectors. They had been reduced to scattered atoms within minutes. The Ethereal Collective had deployed their mindbenders, beings capable of driving enemies insane with a thought, only to watch helplessly as the Devourers seemed immune to all forms of psychic assault. Now, impossibly, these newcomers wanted to try where the galaxy's finest had failed. "Their ship configurations make no sense," muttered the tactical officer, a tall, thin creature whose multiple arms danced across control surfaces with liquid grace. "No energy shields, minimal point defense systems, and their weapons appear to be... Are those chemical propellants?" Zixtal studied the human vessels more closely. They were angular, utilitarian things that looked more like construction equipment than warships. No graceful curves like ethereal vessels. No intimidating spikes like Korthak dreadnoughts. No crystalline beauty like his own people's craft. They were simply functional, as if someone had asked the basic question of what a ship needed to do and built exactly that with no consideration for aesthetics or intimidation. "Commander Reeves," Zixtal spoke into the communication array, his translator converting his clicking speech into the human's bizarre verbal language. "This is Commander Zixtal of the Galactic Defense Force. We appreciate your willingness to assist, but perhaps you don't fully understand the situation. The Devourers have established an unbreakable position. Every attack has failed. Perhaps your forces would be better utilized in evacuation efforts." The response came immediately, and Zixtal was surprised by how calm the human voice sounded. No bravado, no false confidence, just matter-of-fact acknowledgement. "Commander Zixtal, this is Admiral Sarah Reeves of the Terran Expeditionary Force. We understand the situation completely. We've studied the tactical reports from all previous engagements. We appreciate your concern, but respectfully, we're going in." The human fleet began moving toward the planet, and Zixtal found himself leaning forward in his command pod. There was something about their formation that seemed wrong, too loose, too scattered. Any military academy in the galaxy would have failed a cadet for such poor positioning. Yet as he watched, he began to notice patterns within the chaos. Ships that seemed randomly placed were actually providing overlapping fields of fire. Vessels that appeared to be stragglers were positioned to intercept any escape routes. "They're not following standard battle doctrine," observed the tactical officer. "Their formation looks almost organic." As the human ships entered the planet's atmosphere, Zixtal switched the main viewer to long-range surface scans. The Devourer position was clear enough, a massive hive complex that had already begun converting the planet's surface into their characteristic feeding grounds. Thousands of the insectoid creatures scuttled across the landscape, their chitinous bodies gleaming in the alien sun. Orbital bombardment had proven useless. Their exoskeletons simply absorbed energy weapon fire, and kinetic rounds merely bounced off their reinforced carapaces. The humans landed their ships in what appeared to be completely random locations, scattered across hundreds of kilometers. No concentrated assault, no unified front. It was as if they had simply thrown their forces at the planet and hoped for the best. "This is madness," whispered the communications officer. "They're dividing their forces across too wide an area. The Devourers will pick them apart piece by piece." But Zixtal was beginning to suspect there was method to this apparent madness. His tactical display showed human units deploying from their landing sites, but instead of immediately advancing toward the Devourer hive, they were setting up what looked like defensive positions. Some were digging into rocky outcroppings. Others were establishing bases in crater formations. And still others seemed to be simply sitting in open ground with no cover at all. The first Devourer response came within an hour. Massive swarms of the creatures erupted from underground tunnels, moving in perfect coordination toward the nearest human positions. Zixtal had seen this before. The Devourers would overwhelm any position with sheer numbers, their razor-sharp claws and acid-spitting capabilities making short work of even the most heavily armored defenders. The first contact occurred at grid reference 447 Alpha, where a small human unit had taken position on a low hill with minimal cover. Through the long-range sensors, Zixtal could see perhaps 50 humans facing off against what appeared to be over 1,000 Devourers. The outcome seemed inevitable. Then, the humans opened fire. Zixtal had expected energy weapons, plasma cannons, or particle beams like every other civilized species used. Instead, what he witnessed defied all logic. Solid projectiles, fired from chemical propellant weapons, began tearing through Devourer ranks with devastating efficiency. But these weren't the crude bullets he had read about in the humans' historical files. These rounds seemed to explode on impact, sending clouds of metal fragments scything through multiple targets. "Impossible," breathed the tactical officer. "Those projectiles shouldn't be able to penetrate Devourer carapaces. Our energy weapons barely scratched them." But the projectiles weren't trying to punch through the armor. Instead, they were designed to fragment and find the joints, the gaps, the vulnerable points that energy weapons simply couldn't exploit. Where a plasma bolt would spread its energy across the entire surface of a Devourer's shell, these metal fragments concentrated their force on tiny areas, slipping between plates and severing critical connections. The human position on Hill 447 Alpha held for 6 hours against continuous assault, their defensive fire never slackening, never showing the panic that had broken so many other defenders. When the Devourers finally retreated, leaving nearly half their force scattered across the hillside, the humans immediately began reorganizing their position, treating and evacuating their wounded with the same methodical efficiency they had shown in combat. "How many human casualties?" Zixtal asked. The sensor operator's crystalline form chimed softly as data flowed through his consciousness. 17 wounded, 3 killed. 3 killed. Against a force that had wiped out entire divisions of Galaxy-class warriors, the humans had lost 3 soldiers. Zixtal's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed this information. Either the humans were incredibly lucky, or there was something about their approach to warfare that the rest of the galaxy had completely missed. As the planetary day progressed, similar scenes played out across dozens of other locations. Human units, often outnumbered 10 or 20 to 1, held positions that should have been overrun in minutes. Their weapons, primitive by galactic standards, proved devastatingly effective against enemies that had seemed invulnerable. Their tactics, seemingly chaotic and undisciplined, consistently outmaneuvered Devourer forces that operated with hive-mind precision. But what truly puzzled Zixtal was what the humans weren't doing. They weren't advancing. Despite their success in defensive engagements, they made no attempt to push toward the main hive complex. They simply held their scattered positions, maintained their watch, and waited. "Commander," the communications officer announced, "Admiral Reeves is requesting a status update on our orbital surveillance capabilities." Zixtal opened the channel. "Admiral, our sensors show your forces performing far better than projected, but I don't understand your strategy. The main hive remains untouched, and your forces seem to be simply waiting." Admiral Reeves' voice carried what Zixtal was beginning to recognize as characteristic human amusement. "Commander, we're not waiting. We're learning. Every engagement teaches us more about how they move, how they think, how they respond to threats. Tomorrow, we'll know everything we need to know." Learning. Zixtal considered this. Most species approached warfare as a test of strength, speed, or technological superiority. The Korthak relied on overwhelming force, the Ethereals on mental dominance, his own people on tactical precision and superior equipment. But the humans seemed to approach it as a problem to be solved, a puzzle with pieces that could be understood and manipulated. As night fell on Kepler 442b, the human forces consolidated their positions. Medical teams moved between defensive points, evacuating the wounded and rotating fresh troops into position. Supply convoys established logistics networks between scattered outposts. Engineers reinforced defensive positions and established communication relays. Through it all, Admiral Reeves maintained regular contact with the scattered units, not issuing orders in the traditional sense, but sharing information, coordinating resources, adapting strategies based on field reports. It was less like watching a military operation and more like observing a vast learning organism adjusting its behavior in response to environmental stimuli. "Commander," the tactical officer spoke quietly, "I've been analyzing their casualty reports. Their loss ratio is improving with each engagement. The first contacts resulted